Going for two with your boy here, Dan at the B League says, coming at you with a week 6 pick and props show. I am here live and in person. It was going to be a little bit difficult for some reason. The camera wasn't working, which was probably a more beneficial thing for you, the viewer. But either way, the sultry tones still come out, and we can kick on from there. I am here to go on with a pick and prop show via Underdog Fantasy, promo code GF2 for a 100% matching bonus deposit up to $1,000 on your initial outlay. And as always, come over and join Going for Two live at our very best, the best free Discord that you can find kicking about. We have everything you can ask for. It's a free-for-all. It's really the Wild West. It's an animal zoo. It can be anything that you want. Basically, go over there, ask whatever questions you have in regards to your redraft leagues, your dynasty leagues, your auction leagues, your weekly best ball leagues, your pick and prop show leagues, fab auction bids, everything you can, waiver bids, trade advice, anything you can find. Come over there and go to the Going for Two Live Discord, and you can kick on over there and find out everything you need to know. It's a great place to be, wonderful hub, and you can go from there. As always, I am Dan at the B League says, and you can find me anywhere you can find anything. So not very hard to find, not very hard to get to. Either way, we're going to kick on with our props for the week. And pick number one, I like this one a little bit more based on circumstances and narrative, and I hate that because I think it should be a little bit more obvious than that, but we're going to go with that anyway. We're going to go with Justin Herbert this week. We're going to go higher than 34.5 pass attempts at Miami. I feel like this is a very good prop to run with. Look, it's a legitimate way for him to get home this week and what could be a mental performance for him when you think about it. Look, when you lose those running backs and you have a bunch of rag tags behind him, okay, Kamani Vidal were all stands, okay, I understand it. And Hassan Haskins, who's not really a thing in Tennessee or anywhere else, so he's not really got much there behind him in terms of like reliability. Let's say it with that. So we're talking about he's got that, but those two guys, they are generally pretty good at pass catching. I like Vidal on that. I think I heard Jamie say midweek that the guy caught his first pass was a 50-yard touchdown. I remember last year as a rookie. I can't remember. I feel like that's what he said, and I'm going to go off that. So that's what he said. And look, Haskins, he can do a little bit of everything. I find him a bit more of a special teamer, but either way. So he's lost those guys. He's lost Hampton. He's lost Najee Harris. He's got a bunch of guys behind him that are just guys. And look, now he's got decent pass catching backs, but what he has are three elite wide receivers. To me, I feel like these guys have really stepped up. And you're talking about the transformation of Quentin Johnson this year. Oh my God, he is unbelievable. Ladd McConkey is he's starting to pick up the pace from where he was. He looked a little bit lost those first few weeks. Now he's got Keenan Allen. So you're talking about a guy that's got some decent pass catching backs there with a really good trio of receivers. I don't know. I feel like this could be a really good reason for Justin Herbert to kind of crank over that 34.5. I like that for him. And again, you could also tell me that those running backs, I'll probably take the unders on the total carries on both of them because you're not really sure what you're going to get out of them. I don't think. It could be a little bit different. But again, you might want to take the overs on their receiving too. But, you know, a bunch of good receivers about to take advantage of a Miami defense. And look, their average cornerbacks and their safety groups kind of been taking a hit. I mean, you know, they're okay. That if they're fine, they're probably mid at best. You know, the possibility of that trio of receivers in form in a game at the moment. I think Herbert has gone over this quota in 2 of his last 3 games as well. He's had a couple of 40 burgers in there as well. So, again, the only hold-up I have is, you know, the Dolphins have given up, on average, the second fewest pass attempts so far to quarterbacks this year, and I feel like that might be more game-driven based on who they've played or the game's been run away with, and they're not having to throw it as much, and I understand that aspect too. That's probably my best guess. And I can't say that, Miami's in these games where teams are going to have to throw on them because Miami's basically been run out the door pretty much, and that's why they're, 1-4. So normally I'd say, yeah, this is a high quota for a game that's probably leaning towards the same way, but when you look at who he has behind him, I feel like his best option might be to throw more frequently. That could also mean he has more intercepts, more turnovers. There's an opportunity for that too if you're interested, but I feel like Herbert in that regard, 34.5 pass attempts should be hitting over on that. Pick number 2, not quite a revenge game, buddy, because you only played, 10 starts for him? I know you were there for a few years, but Rico Dowdle, lower than 70.5 rushing yards versus Dallas. Now, I wrote this out a few days ago, sorry, and obviously Hubbard was questionable, and obviously Chuba Hubbard's out. Okay, let's get on. I understand Dowdle's last game with it, how 23 carries for 200 rush yards against Miami. Cool. You know, that's not going to happen every week. And I know that Dallas can be a positive matchup for running backs, but Miami's Miami. They're pretty abhorrent at the moment. They're pretty bad. So, you know, they've been anything but competent on the ground. So, you know, a big game shouldn't have been that big of a surprise in hindsight. It's good to go, we had a massive game against Miami. Yeah, we probably should have seen that one coming, you know. And listen, if Omari and Hampton was playing with Herbert tomorrow, you'd be smashing the overs too. That would be an obvious choice. He'd probably be absolute chalk in DFS, but here we are. This is what we've got. So, look, a big game shouldn't be that big of a surprise, as I said, but, you know, you have a look at what they've done against Dallas running backs. Saquon 60, Scatterbo 45, Swift 33. The last 2 weeks they've been teed off on. Now, it's not that much of a surprise. Obviously, Green Bay, they're very run-heavy in terms of Josh Jacobs, 86 yards. Breece Hall went absolute bananas with 113. So, not much else you can do in that regard with Justin Fields and whatnot. But, you know, Hall 113. Only twice have the Cowboys been hit on the overs of this quota this year, and that's what I just mentioned. That's back-to-back games. The Cowboys in general, middle of the pack on the ground in regards to attempts and yards. They're really the epitome of game script. If they are up, no one's running on them. If they are down, everyone's running on them. And that's just generally how it goes. Pick number 3 this week, Stephon Diggs. I like Stephon Diggs this week. Why wouldn't we? Let's get on the bandwagon. Pick number 3, Stephon Diggs, higher than 61.5 receiving yards at New Orleans. Nice for him. Stephon Diggs has looked, you know, really looked like he's woken up a bit, hasn't he? He's really starting to come through a little bit more to be that guy that we know he can be. Now, obviously, his end in Buffalo was a little bit weird, and then he gets over to Houston, and he looks okay. Him and Nico seem to be getting in their way, and then he gets injured, and you're like, well, short stint, whatever it is. Obviously, getting under Coach Vrabel's skin, saying he's about 55%, or 50%. He's 5 out of 10 on his way there, or whatever the hell he said. Yeah, okay. You know, Vrabel called bet, didn't he? He goes, okay, here we go. He's had nearly 10 targets in back-to-back games over the last 2 weeks, and around 123 yards on average in that span too. So he's really firing up in that regard. And to be fair, Diggs, look, again, he has been a little bit lost over the past few years, but, you know, the last 2 weeks, if he's carrying on this form, at least part of this form, he is a sure bet to go over pretty much every time in that regard. Now, look, what's good about this matchup is the Saints, look, they haven't been a pushover in any game they've played in this year. To be fair to the Saints, they've lost, they're 1-4, the only games against the Giants. They have not been pushed over, I don't think, in any game. They've hung about relatively enough. They've been competitive. And I think they'll play them tight at home. You know, to be fair, I think the Patriots can be had. They're a little bit shaky. They look like they can win the games they should lose, and they lose the games they probably should win. They're a little bit weird like that. So, look, you know, they have played receivers tight, but they don't give a much. But let's think about the murderers right that they've faced. Darius Slayton, Khalil Shakir. You know, the average for the Saints is, you know, they're a good pass defense. Are they? You know, you look at it, JSN nearly hit him for 100. Jennings and Pearsall, on average, took them for about 80 each. And Marvin Harrison, who is mid as fuck, ran for 71. So, you know, he's average at best, and he's still got over this quota of 61.5 quite easily. Look, they've had some positive matchups to bring those numbers down, and fair play to them. You can only beat the players there in front of you, but like Wan'Dale Robinson, you know, he's had a good year so far. Darius Slayton, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about what Elijah Moore, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman did nothing. I know he's a favorite of the show, but he did nothing. And yeah, so that's just where he's at. So, you know, I feel like he's starting to find that rapport with Drake May. I think anyone that thought that should take off from week 1 was probably a little bit delusional. The guy was coming back from knee injury. He looks like he's there, and that's a cool thing to do as well. We're going to talk about Joe Flacco for pick number 4. We're going to go Joe Flacco lower than 35.5 pass attempts at Green Bay. I like Rashawn Gary for over half a sack. Imagine being Joe Flacco and thinking, I don't have to see, you know, the Packers again. No Rashawn Gary, no Micah Parsons, no Edgerrin Cooper, no Quay Walker. I don't have to deal with that again. No Xavier McKinney when I throw. I don't have to do that. Wow, I got that out of the way, and I only have to play them at home in Cleveland. And here you are 3 weeks later going, oh, shit, here we go again. Look, at the end of the day, I feel like this is the prop that I feel like it's a bit sticky. And I feel like this one could blow up in my face a little bit more than I'd like it to. But, and I'll tell you why it's probably going to blow up in my face, but I'll tell you why I'm going to go the opposite direction anyway. So the Browns, when he was at the Browns, through 4 starts, Flacco, who went 3 over 4 hitting the overs here. So he'd gone over 35.5, 3 out of the 4 games in Cleveland. And obviously with a mid-pass game, and at the top, to be fair, he had a mixture of Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson and whatnot. He didn't really have Judkins, did he? So he averaged, 40 pass attempts per game with 36 against the Packers when he played them in week 3 as well. So the metrics for Flacco, if he was with the Browns, would scream over again. And he's now on a better team with better pass catchers like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Gesicki, Fant, all those sorts of guys. He's got some deep threats in Yoshifis and whatever. But still, it's an incredibly fine line to skirt around. And I know this weekend line and unfamiliarity could lead to problems for the Bengals. He's got a decent running back in Chase Brown, maybe in the backfield. He could get there. But if the Packers get after this quickly, would you really be surprised to see Jake Browning thrown back in there? Like, I wouldn't be. This week, if you're going to tell me this guy turns up on Tuesday and he starts playing and he's going to have 40 pass attempts on his first whack, oh, well, he did it with Cleveland. Yeah, but he was there from the start. Well, he did it with the Colts. Yeah, but he was there from the start of the year. You're talking about a guy week 1, turns up on Tuesday and he's playing on Sunday and he's going to have 40 pass attempts? I don't think so. That's a high quota. And I feel like it's given because that's what he's done. I don't like it. I do like Rashawn Gary going over half a sack. The last time he met Flacco against the Browns a few weeks back, he tore them up twice in the interior for 2. Half a sack seems a bit more logical considering the Bengals run deep. O-line is absolutely abhorrent, isn't it? So one of my favorite props for this week, it's going to be the London game, the early morning game. We're talking about J.K. Dobbins higher than 68.5 rushing yards versus the Jets in the UK. Look, let's keep it simple here for the final Sunday slot prop bet. The Jets have given up the 8th most yards per game with a solid 109 and even better 4th most rush attempts per game to the running backs at a high 25 pass attempts or attempts per game, rush attempts per game. So 25 rush attempts per game, 109 yards per game, the 8th most giving it up in that regard, which is great for Dobbins because when you look at the backfield, everyone was talking about RJ Harvey this, Tyler Beatty that. Maybe it's J.K. Dobbins, he's coming in late. No, J.K. Dobbins, he's got 55% rush share of the backfield. So he's the guy, he's it. And you have to figure in Bo Nixon and that, he's probably running around about 18% too. So 15% for 55% for J.K. Dobbins. That's a big deal. The problem with him has always been health, not production. When he produces, his yards per carry, what was he at Baltimore, like 6 yards per carry? He was going mental over there. So he's good at that. He's good at yards per carry, yards per rush, yards per attempt. He's always had a dominant attempt quota. He's always been up there. He's just health has always been his problem. He seems to have found his footing in Denver, and he's nearly averaging 16 attempts per game, tied for 7th most in the league, and for 80 yards per game. So he's going, 8th most yards per game per week amongst running backs. So you're talking about a guy who's going to dominate the backfield touches. His average is higher than the quota against a team that gives it up frequently to the same guy. I feel like J.K. Dobbins is a bit of a lock to go over 68.5 here. The only problem that he might have is if they run away with this and they say, let's just figure in some other guys. Let's get them some workload. And, that could happen against the Jets. You never know. But I really like this line for him. We're going to go over some two Monday night games. There's 2 Monday night games again. I'm not going to lie to you guys. 2 games on a Monday night for an East Coast dad sucks. I hate it so much. I'm a chance to get the halftime of the first game. I'm tired. I got things to do on Tuesday. I work. I got kids. I ain't doing it. But here we are. We're talking about the idea that I can stay up to 12:30 to watch the Commanders and Bears. Well, actually sounds like a good game. Bills and Falcons. Sounds like maybe I'll talk myself into it later. We'll discuss that another time. Let's go with the first pick. I'm going to give a couple here. I'm not going to go over too much because, obviously it's Friday. Props are going to change by then. But the 2 that stood out to me that I like the most, we're going to talk about Michael Penix against the Bills. Now, Falcons are at home, and that's the first thing we need to really get out there. The Falcons at home are a different animal to the Falcons on the road. Now, it's one of the great tells this year. And look at Michael Penix's home road splits. I know it was somewhat mentioned early in the week, vaguely. No one really wants to go over it that much. He managed 300 at home versus Tampa in week 1, and obviously they had the bye last week. But week 4 versus Washington, 313 passing yards. So he's averaging around, 600 yards? He's had 307 yards on average at home passing. Right? Let's talk about what he does on the road. Carolina on the road. Put up a dud, no points, 172 passing yards. Week 2 against Minnesota, 132. Like half. He's averaging around 150 yards on the road. So, this guy's halving his output. His QBR rating's 98 at home, and it's 56 on the road. Come on, this is where he's at. This is what he is. So, at home, he's a good chance. Now, that 307 yards, that's pretty impressive. Problem is going to be with the Bills. We've played, amongst teams, played 5 games. They've given up the fewest, amongst teams that have played 5 games, they've given up the fewest passing yards to quarterbacks this year. And that's a big thing. That's a stunning 167 yards per game. Despite their 4-1 record, the Bills, though. How about this? It's now week 6. The Bills have only played 1 game on the road. Wow. Talk about a team and the narrative being pushed towards them. Okay, fine, fair enough. Despite their 4-1 record, the Bills have played 1 game on the road. It was to the New York Jets in week 2. And let's guess what happened. Justin Fields gets hurt that game. They play Tyrod Taylor. Combined, they maybe made about 90 passing yards. Combined, 90 passing yards at home against the Bills. When one quarterback gets in, Tyrod Taylor gets thrown in. Not really the sign that maybe the Bills is great pass defense. Maybe they've just had a pretty good run up the road as it is. Look, when we have a look at it as they've been, against below average teams like the Jets, Miami, and the Saints, who they have played at home, the Jets away, but Miami and the Saints at home, Bills get to work. Spencer Rattler, Tua Tagovailoa. Come on, what are we doing here? But when they've played decent teams, Lamar Jackson week 1, he had about 200 yards, over 200 yards, give or take. And last week, who did they play last week? We're talking about here, or May last week, he had 256. That's right off the top of my head. Against decent teams, like they can be passed on. They just haven't played as many decent teams as they've played, and they've been playing at home on the road. It's going to be a little bit different. So I feel like the Bills, as much as they could restrict Michael Penix, maybe if at all the plays, it could be a bit of a problem, but haven't been able to penetrate too much. I don't know. I'm not saying Penix is going to punch for 300, but 250, 260, I don't think it's out of the question here at home. I really don't think it's that massive of a quota around. You got London, you got Mooney back healthy, Pitts, Bijan in the background, RG can catch it as well. The Falcons might be one of those teams that actually caused the Bills a bit of trouble this year. Have a look at that as the week goes on. But Penix higher than 228, I kind of like that a lot. Last pick I'm going to give up here, it's going to be Roma Duns. I hate touchdown bets, but we're going to give a touchdown bet. Roma Duns higher than half a touchdown. Duns is scoring. He's a scoring machine. He's had 5 touchdowns in the last 4 appearances. Mad. And he had the bye last week. So, look, when you have a look at it, he's a bona fide red zone option. He's a reliable source, short, medium, and long. He's very good in that regard. And we're also coming up against the team that's tied 3rd most touchdowns to wide receivers this year. So that's a pretty cool thing to be as well. So we've got the highest scoring games on the slate. There's going to be opportunities. Banged up secondary like Washington's kind of had. They've been in and out. Players have lost. They lost Will Harris for the year as well. They've had a few guys in and out rotating. I feel like this is an opportunity for him to go at least 6 from 5. I feel like this is a massive game for Roma Duns. Primetime game where he can do some damage this week, I think. I think it's a big week for Roma Duns. He might have one this week. So nice and easy. We're going to wrap up today's show. Easy 17 minutes. I am back this week. But before I do, as always, Underdog Fantasy promo code GF2 for 100% matching deposit up to $1,000 on your initial outlay. Get that in your guts in $1,000 credits. And going for 2 live Discord, it is a fantastic place to be to ask whatever you need to ask. Dynasty advice, roster advice, waiver advice, fab advice, trade advice. Get over there, prop advice. I'm there somewhere. At the B League Says, you can tag me and ask away. Fantastic place. We got IDP advice over there. It's a fantastic place. Go find us over there. It's a fantastic place to be. As always, let's wrap this up. I'm Dan at the B League Says. We're going to go over this one more time. Pick number 1, Justin Herbert, higher than 34.5 pass attempts at Miami. Pick number 2, Rico Dowdle, lower than 70.5 rushing yards versus Dallas. Pick number 3, Stephon Diggs, higher than 61.5 receiving yards at New Orleans. Pick number 4, Joe Flacco, lower than 35.5 pass attempts at Green Bay. Pick number 4B, Rashawn Gary, higher than half a sack. Pick number 5, J.K. Dobbins, higher than 68.5 rushing yards versus the Jets in the UK. It's on the Saturday game at 9:30 in the morning. Pick number 6, I guess, Michael Penix, higher than 228.5 passing yards. And pick number 7, Robert Duds, higher than half a touchdown. We've got a mixed bag in there this week. Whole bunch of different props. It is what it is. Let's go from there. Have a great week. As always, I'm Dan at the B League Says. Safe bets, happy punts. Cheers.